I'll call the meeting to order tonight. May we have the roll call?
Thank you. Commissioner Lively?
Here.
Commissioner Whitmer? Here. Commissioner Quinlan?
Present.
Chair Christensen?
Here.
Commissioner Lee?
Here. I always feel like it gets us off to a good start when you call Commissioner Lively.
You're elevating us in stature.
Sets a tone.
Yeah. Next item, of course, is the approval of the minutes of May 22. May I have a motion? If there's any change.
Move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of May 22nd are approved. Item 3 is next. That's the public comments for those in our audience who wish to comment on items that are not on the agenda. You would be limited to 3 minutes per person. Do I see anybody that wishes to? If not, this item would be closed, and we'll move on to commissioners' reports.
I have none.
I have no report.
None. Nothing here.
Nothing here. That concludes the commissioners' reports. Item number 5. Now we'll open a public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. My eyes are not too good today. Next, item is staff report.
Thank you. Just give you an update on recent City Council action. The council did adopt the budget for the fiscal year. They also heard from the consultant that conducted the fee study of all the fees. That includes the planning review fees, public works fees. They decided to continue that discussion to a study session that I believe will be conducted in August. They voted for a new vice mayor, Councilmember Wiest, and then they also decided to advertise that. I think I let you know about that, the vacancy. And so if you know of anyone or yourselves are interested, you could certainly submit an application for the council vacancy. They're going to have a special meeting to discuss that, and if they're unable to find a council member to fill that term, then they would probably have an election. I would also like to thank Commissioner Quinlan for his services. This is his last meeting, and we brought some cupcakes to thank him very much. And I think I also informed you that we'll have a new commissioner at your next meeting. Paul Tonelli, he was a Park and Rec commissioner for several years. Phil, is he on any other committees? CCC. Okay.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearings.
Wow, thank you.
Enjoy.
All yours, Paul.
Okay.
The item before us is the proposed improvements by the Little League to the existing ball field at Holbrook Power. This will be the 3rd meeting that we have dealt with this subject, and if the commissioners will recall, I'm sure they do, at the last meeting they were asked, the commissioners were asked to submit items for discussion at this meeting, from which items of work or parts of the physical proposal of the Little League that we would discuss and make recommendations to the council on that. I propose that we hear from the staff on this matter, that each one of us, if we wish to make a statement before going into the specific items of our position, we can take 3 minutes to do so, and if the applicant wishes to make a statement before we get into the specific items, we would, they would also have 3 minutes to statement. Then we would move on to the specific items. I have tried to narrow down what you asked for in the last meeting and submitted to the staff. This particular list will be on the board so that everybody can see it. But there are extra copies up here if you want to see the items that we discussed. We can add to these as if they're not complete in the minds of the commissioners. So with that, I would like to proceed to the staff reports.
Thank you. Very brief staff report. As you recall, this was thoroughly reviewed at your last meeting, and you asked that it be continued so that we can work on a set of recommendations. The last meeting we had talked about possibly issuing a conditional use permit, and under the advice of the city attorney, we are not going to issue a conditional use permit, but rather prepare a list of recommendations that would be considered by the city council. And the city council will be issuing what's previously been called, I think, just a use agreement, but it's a field use agreement, and that governs the maintenance of the field, the improvements, how they'll be accepted by the town, if there's an annual payment, the terms, everything will be in that use agreement for the use of the field by Little League. Just wanted to let you know, procedurally, I took all of the comments that the commissioners provided, typed them into this list. I didn't change a word unless it was a typo on my part. And then staff met with Menlo Atherton Little League to discuss them. And really taking the lead on that was the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department is the lead department for this project. They're going to be responsible for the ongoing maintenance, for reviewing the details of the improvements, for recommending the acceptance of the improvements. And they have more experience, operating and maintaining the field, so they really took the lead on that. And we also, under advice of the city attorney, we've provided you again the ballot wording, and I don't think we had in your packet last time the argument for and against that was provided to the voters, because under the advice of the attorney, this is what you should consider as the information that the voters have before them. So procedurally, if you're able to develop that set of recommendations tonight, what I would do is take all of those recommendations, bring them forward to the city council, ideally at its next meeting, is when I have it scheduled, get direction from the city council on your recommendations. From that, we would finalize the negotiations with Menlo Atherton Little League, develop the field use agreement that would then go back to the city council.
What I'd like to do tonight is get the commissioners' positions on the various subjects as you see in my draft here, and then draft a letter of recommendation to the council by staff, and appointing 2 members of the commission to work with staff on that letter. Then the letter would come back to the entire commission and be between our meetings, and if anybody has any difference of opinion, it would go on next month's agenda for further discussion.
And that fits the applicant's timeline, okay?
I don't know. Look, I don't know. It seems to me that we may make our recommendations here, but obviously the staff has a different recommendation than what we have. But I think it's important that 2 of us work with staff on a proper letter or a recommendation to the council.
Yeah, the intent is that all of your recommendations are fully presented to the city council.
Right, and to speed the thing along, we, in the interim between our meetings, we would have a meeting and draft, come up with a final form. We can send it out if we're in a hurry, but I'm not sure when council will consider it.
Well, I'm working with the city manager. I have it on the July city council agenda for their review of your recommendations.
Well, then what I'd like to do is have that letter drafted in the interim, sent out to all the commissioners, And if any commissioner objects to the letter, then we'll have to schedule it on our July meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I disagree with that. I don't care what the city manager has on the agenda for the July council meeting. I think we ought to take our due deliberation and do it right. If we make a list of comments to the council and staff puts it together, I think it ought to come back or get to us in between meetings so we can have another look at it before it goes to the council direct.
Oh, well, that's exactly what I'm
It
proposing.
doesn't have to meet the agenda getting on the July agenda.
No, but I would like, in drafting that recommendation, two of us to sit down with the staff and to make sure that our thoughts are properly presented. So if we can't, if it doesn't pass, Phil, we would consider it again at the July meeting, regardless of what the council thinks.
The one thing that I would want to make sure of is that the council didn't feel like they were going to move ahead without our recommendation. So if we missed the window for a recommendation, I think that would be worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think that's a window. I think it's an opportunity, but it's not a window. It's not the only time they're going to meet.
Okay,
We can do that.
that's a good point. That's a good point. As long as they don't take action, is there an action item? Is it action item on the first meeting that the council has?
What we had laid out was, if you have your recommendations ready, this evening we were going to bring those forward to the July council meeting. And then from there, council would review all of your recommendations, give direction to staff.
Okay.
So
and
they're not making a
if
decision.
the
they're
directions
providing.
aren't ready, then they'll just have to be moved to August.
I'll need to work with the city manager on
I
that.
understand.
It's a higher authority than me.
Of course, but I think it's important to us as a commission, since we have spent a good deal of time on this subject, that the draft definitely reflect our thinking. And
Yeah, so I'm sorry, we were having a side conversation. I'm a little concerned about the Brown Act. If we send it to everybody and we don't
Ask
have,
about that.
you
And two
know,
of you have a conversation, and then it gets approved by everybody else, you're missing the opportunity for the public to understand what's going on. So instead, if you want to do that, I think it's better, not respecting the timeline, but if you were to have a conversation today, and then, two of you work on it, bring it back at the next meeting and approve it there in front of everybody so the public can understand what your comments might be
that
or
would be
issues,
fine.
if that's okay.
fine.
And as you would probably predict from me, given the way we've dealt with all the things, if I'm allowed to speak, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I think we've spent enough time on this. This is not rocket science. I think that you've done a very good job of setting out a number of issues, and I think that it should be easy enough to say yay, nay, this, that, and have it all done here. And we're only making recommendations, and I think that we need to get this process
Out of the way. And, well, I think we all would like to get it out of the way, but I do think the letter of recommendation to the council should adequately reflect our recommendations. So if we can't do it informally during the month, we'll just have to come back onto the July agenda. That's it. And we'll even give you a copy for comment.
That's okay. I think I am termed out at the end of this meeting, so.
Well,
I
we'd
think
certainly like to hear from you as a citizen.
and to try to facilitate your discussion, Andrea has a laptop with a projector. We've done this successfully in other meetings where she's just going to type what you say, and then everybody will be able to see it. So I was hoping that would help you be able to formulate the recommendation.
Well, we
All
have
kind of wordsmith it.
yes, that would be fine. It would be good for the audience. There
Sure.
are more copies if anybody wants a personal copy of the items.
Mr. Chairman, I got one more comment to make.
Okay.
Before we start on this, I'm very dismayed at the staff report, and pardon me, Lisa. You may not like what I'm going to say here. You put down exactly what we suggested in the way of comments. Then you have staff responsible for the numbers on it. Then over in here, you have the Middle and Little League response. It seems to me the staff has incorporated their comments, and they should have been made here, not to you guys. They should have been made to the planning commission. There's comments in here that I think are dead wrong, and they shouldn't be in here.
I'm sorry, comments from who that are done
It
wrong?
says Menlo Athens Little League response over on the right-hand side of your report here.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of things in here that I think are dead wrong. It's not right. For example, all bleachers should be earth tones, colors green or browns. Staff will require MA to explore this option. Their answer was prefabricated seating is generally available in aluminum. Painting would result in increased maintenance issues. Say painting, aluminum can be chemically coated to be a dark brown. That's simple. I mean, it's that dirt simple. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that in here. For example, Atherton Police Department, this is the one that says, hub privacy screen. Privacy screen in the back, it's a common feature in public park restrooms. It has not been demonstrated to security problems. Well, it hasn't been there yet, but it sure will be in our park, which is behind everything. And I have notes all over the place. I just gotta tell you, I am dismayed at the results of that staff report.
Well, and as I indicated previously, that was mostly prepared by the Public Works Department since they have more expertise in the park and with the long-term maintenance. The Police Department did specifically look at the plans as well, and I incorporated their comments. They did not, in that one item, have any concerns with the privacy screen.
Well, I think the Menlo Athens Little League people should have made those comments to us here in answer to our questions, not written on a piece of paper.
Well, let's,
That's all I can say.
okay, let's move on, and I would like, if the commissioners wish to make a 3-minute statement, they may. I know I do, and if the Little League would like to make a 3-minute statement before we actually go into the items of work that are a recommendation in regard to. Would you care to make it?
I'm gonna wait until after I hear the
Yeah,
applicants. I think I'm gonna be better prepared to respond after I hear what they say, because I want to understand some of the things they've said here.
Paul?
Sure, I'll make a statement. I obviously have been pretty forward about the fact that I think we've taken way too long to get through this stuff. I really don't think this is rocket science. It's mostly up or down. So I'm glad that we've at least gotten to the point where we're up or down. In terms of the report and also sort of the key points that I think we should consider when we go through this. One is that I think, you know, the voters did approve a statement, and, you know, I think we need to keep that into account. It really only covers 3 things: voting, covered seating, improved playing surface, and restrooms. I think that's what the voters voted on. Whether they did or did not take into account the statements, I don't know, but those are the 3 things that I will look at and feel constrained by, but not anything else that was in the packet. And in the report where it said staff thinks it's consistent or not with the intent of the voters, I did find that a little bit interesting, because I thought that was it's very subjective. And so I was a bit surprised to see them sort of weighing in on this is what the voters thought, this is not what the voters thought. I didn't really see why that was necessary. And then overall, in terms of the plan, I actually like what Commissioner Lane said the last time about that this is basically, it's a meadow, and we are going to have a ballpark there, and we want to make sure the ballpark is fully functional and what it needs. I think that has been approved by the voters, but sort of some of the nice to haves that interfere with its ability to be basically used and seen as a meadow are things that I think that we should consider not recommending that they include. But, you know, that's I thought he stated it very well in the last meeting.
Okay. All right, Beth, do you have anything?
I was surprised at that the Little League people rejected every comment that the planning commission made to them, and I thought that that there should be some way to bring us all together, and that Little League is standing firm, and you know, so I don't really know, how this is all gonna play out. I don't think there's anything else I wanna add with regard to comments on the stadium and, facilities, but, you know, I just was surprised at the way that this report was.
Bill?
I agree with Eric. I think it's a public hearing, and I think I'll wait till I hear some arguments and I'll make my statement at the end if you don't mind.
Okay. I'll make my statement now, and my statement is simple. We've been asked by the council to review the plans of the Little League for improvements to the existing ball diamond and to make recommendations to the council. These recommendations are limited only by the ballot measure itself, the ballot measure that was passed last year. I believe the only limitation factor is the ballot measure itself, not the accompanying arguments. I know that I, in voting yes on the measure, did not regard the arguments as binding, but I supported an improved baseball field, not the one I saw nearly 2 years ago, after the proposal was first made to the council. It was a field that I thought was a disgrace both to the Little League and to the town. I believe the field should be approved to meet the objectives of the general plan. That is to maintain Atherton as rural and rustic. The proposal before us is not in keeping with the objective of the general plan. It is much too monumental, and I will support a much lower scale improvement in keeping with the objective of the general plan. Little League, do you have any statement to make?
Thank you. Mike Gardner with Menlo Atherton Little League. Thank you for your time again, considering the issue. We, in response, Mrs. Whitmer, about the comments on the proposal, we were asked to respond to each one of the items that was presented before us. We are not entrenched, per se. We are more than willing to make concessions. One of the concessions, for instance, it was a great recommendation, I believe, from Mr. Lane, was can we save that 11-inch oak tree? Absolutely. We asked our landscape architect, can we save that? Can we do that? Yes, you're going to have to reconfigure this and we can put some stuff around it. We want to do those things. We're not entrenched. We want to make sure that this project moves forward. We want to work with the town. We have heard all of the comments, and we believe through the normal course of planning and through the other processes that we'll be able to come to good agreements. There are certain things that may or may not work. We believe that the public was able to see all of the rebuttals, the comments, the arguments for and against, and the ballot measure. There was public record information regarding the website. There was our meeting that we had at the field with design drawings where a couple hundred people from the community came out. We've done everything we can, and we will continue to do everything we can to be as transparent as possible and give as much information as possible. We're not entrenched. We don't want an argument. We just want the project to move forward. We believe that what we've done here and what the voters voted on, the public was well informed. And we believe that moving forward, we should all consider those. The arguments, the rebuttals, etc., should clearly be considered. So it was in the public record.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was the location of the scoreboard in the ballot measure?
The actual location?
Yes. Okay. So in my mind,
That's something we're willing to consider. Yes.
Right. And was the permanence or the removal of fence in the ballot measure?
The removable fence in the ballot measure.
There was a permanent fence in the ballot measure.
We never proposed a permanent outfield fence.
Okay, good. So here's why I waited. So as I read through this, and you know I'm highly supportive of this project, I felt the response was would have been much shorter if you just said talk to the hand. So I am not happy with the response from a lot of different levels. First of all, it didn't address specifically the issue of balancing the current need with the future need. It did a really great job of talking about the future of the ballpark need. It did nothing to address the balancing of it. So it was a negotiation of point by point. So we'll look into the foul poles, we'll look into this, we'll look into that. We won't do this, the voter said that, the voter said this, the voter said that. So the voters said nothing about the location of the scoreboard, and the response back was, right side is too much sunny, left side is the best place for it, which is what we heard in the public hearing. The specific of the balancing of the use of the area for both is not addressed. So as the person starting out with the most positive on this whole process, this response is unacceptable. So now, that doesn't mean that you're not willing to negotiate and talk about it and things like that. I get that. But to start, so I spend my life negotiating with people in their careers. And I know that there's one style that says, hey, I'll go where I can go and I'll show good intent. And there's another style that says, I'll give as little as I can and then I'll see how far they push me. This is the second model of that. So I need to see the response to the balance. And if we do that tonight, that's good. But this did not do that.
So in the responses, we had the collective group get together and we had one person write it up, and it was the gal who works for our design architect firm.
Right.
And we said, can you respond to these issues? You've had our feedback. And also work with town staff regarding colors of bleachers, etc. We said, and I clearly went on public record at the last meeting and said, yes, we'll certainly look at alternative items instead of aluminum. No problem. The scoreboard, we can certainly do it. What I proposed to town staff when we met with them was, let's get the council, let's get the planning commission out there, let's walk Watkins, and let's go put up orange big poles with orange sheeting in each location, and then either drive by or walk by to make a recommendation. So to me, it's 6 1/2 dozen, truly. My personal opinion is the scoreboard would be less intrusive in left field than right field because the gap
I
in
didn't
trees.
say left field or right field. My suggestion was was in the unit, it was in the building itself.
That's
So
understood.
So because then the electrical does not be run to it, and then it displays where people can see it, then there's no sun on it. So all the things that were the criteria for use were the same. And the impact of the meadow effect is lower, all right? So in the framing of the response, what I was looking for, and what I thought I was clear about, and sending is not receiving, I understand that, was the idea that we would get a response back within the context of what I hoped was the agreement leaving here, that we would come up with a mutual use model. What I got was a laundry list of responses to a laundry list, all right, which is one way to do it, but it's not good. It's not a good way to do it, and if you want to demonstrate good intent.
Your point is well taken. We went on the directive of town staff of address each item individually.
All right.
And that's what was done.
And I appreciate the fact that you did. See, I didn't say not to respond. What I'm saying is the intent of what you just said did not come through here. So if I look at this and it goes forward to the council, then I would say the voter said, 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 the voter said. We looked at this, it didn't work. The paint man saying it would be a problem, and I see all the reasons why you like your proposal. All right. When I started this conversation, I talked about the things I liked about your proposal and the things that I thought were important for the community. All right. I showed both sides.
Yep.
I need to see that back.
Absolutely.
All right. That's my only comment.
Yeah. I think this is a little awkward in regard to what you're proposing, because we do not, like a variance or something like that, we do not have the final say.
I know that, but he has the right to request what he asked for, and all I'm saying is that with no authority, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I would like it duly noted that your comments resonated frequently with me. So as we're going through this and talking about concessions, they do resonate, and I do understand that, and I truly take that into account.
All right.
As I see it, the council has the final power. If the council wants to set up a subcommittee of a couple council members and the planning commission or council planning commission, I think it would be wonderful if we could sit down and discuss the various items and what can be done to modify the plan. But at this point, as I understand it, all we're being asked to do is make our recommendations. And Little League, we're not in a position, and neither is Little League, of compromising, what their original plans are.
And to your point, when asked about the particular issues in meeting with town staff, it was their choice, and they said, well, here's how we're going to respond. We're going to do the numbers, and we thought, okay, if that's what you're going to do. We want to provide more context, and it was to try to simplify.
Sure.
And I'm not taking away from what the Public Works Department did.
So I think
wanted to make it clean.
I think we'll all
But please
agree that
understand,
Eric's
we do want to
approach
make concessions.
is the right way if we had more power in this matter than we.
All I'm saying is that you have the power to ask what you request, and before the city council. You have the authority, the flexibility around that, and all I'm asking, as one of the people that voted for it and on this board, is that you consider that.
Absolutely. Everything is duly noted, and we reflect on it regularly.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Bill, can you
Let me just give you an example of my concern with this project. During the hearing a month ago, landscape architect was here, and we asked him, what about the grade separation between the walkway across the back of the so-called grandstand and the elevation of the tennis court? And mine would say, we're gonna have a retaining wall there. And the response from them, he said, it's not gonna be a retaining wall. Well, the drawing shows paving, whatever, the hardscape coming out even with a planter that's alongside the edge of the tennis court. Somebody said, oh, it's only a little less than 2 feet. I happened to go out there today on purpose with a surveyor's level, and I know there's 30 inches of difference between home plate and the top of the tennis court. So something's got to happen in transition, and it's not mentioned. So my comments about the devil in the detail are still there. My comments will be these. Holbrook Palmer Park is a national park and should remain as close to that as possible, given the recent popular vote. The devil is in the details of this proposal. Too large, too much bulk, too much hardscape, too much maintenance, too many security issues. It's plain too much. Holbrook Palmer Park deserves a much better, refined plan which will serve the community.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll move on then to the specific items that are on the list as to what you would recommend to the
And
council.
for the record, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that everyone knew that I did know what the ballot was. I was just validating with the applicant that there's certain things that I didn't think that were directed, and I wanted to make sure that we were both on the same page in terms of things that were approved and things that weren't.
Okay, we'll move on then, and what we'll do here is discuss. Under structure, we have several parts to that.
Do we want to start with structure?
You want to?
I prefer to,
Anything easier?
man,
You want
let's build some momentum.
All right, what would you suggest we start with?
Basically, anything else.
All right, let's start with foul poles.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, that'll be good. All right, the foul poles, I believe, are, what, 15 or 20 feet high?
15.
Yeah, and are permanent. What are your thoughts on that? I'll just move right through all of you and.
I think they ought to be removed.
They could be removable at the end of the season?
Correct.
They could be up only for the season. Okay. Mary?
I agree with Bill.
Okay. Paul?
I'm gonna go through systematically. So outfield poles, it's not covered seating, it's not necessarily improved playing area, it's not a restroom, so therefore it's not constrained, I don't think, by the vote. In terms of living up to the meadow type comment, permanent poles will not fall in line with that, so I wouldn't support permanent poles. If the poles are removable, then I think it falls in what I'll ultimately end up saying about the outfield fence. So if it's removable when everything else is
At the end
removed,
of the season,
that's
so
it.
it could be only
That's
out
okay.
for the season. Okay, Eric?
As a longtime outfielder, I would, I don't see any need for the poles. It was approved, but if the applicant chose not to do the poles because the game can play without them, I think that would be my preference. If poles are considered to be absolutely critical to the efficacy of good baseball, which for me is kind of a stretch, then I would say it has to be removable.
Okay. Well, my feeling, of course, is foul poles are fine during the season, but they should be removable at the end. So could I have a motion? I'd like us to vote on each one, so move through.
I motion that the foul poles be deemed as removable at the end of the season and on request.
Okay. And on request.
I think we're,
Yeah.
a point of procedure.
Okay.
We were wondering if you were gonna take into account any public comment, and if so, at what point, if you want to work that in.
Well, we've heard public comment. We can open it for public comment if it's necessary, but I think the whole aim here is really to get a list of recommendations.
Well,
But should we give
Maybe
maybe a
it's-
chance to comment on
Yeah.
it? Because they could point out something
All right.
that either we hadn't thought of, or they could say, hey, I understand your recommendation, you know, well, let's.
All right, but I-
Because we're not making decisions.
You
And,
can also limit it,
and upon request.
Yes, I will limit.
keep it quick.
If you wish to hear from Little League on the subject, I'll ask Little League if they have any comment on what they've heard so far, and you've heard the motion.
We appreciate the comments here. We are researching removable foul poles.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion before us, and I'll second it, that foul poles be removable and at the end of the season, and only for the season, and removable on request.
I'm not sure what upon request means.
Upon request of the town, so if there's an event in the park and the town wants the fence and the poles down, then they would accommodate that
Okay,
request.
we'll just say, add to your motion that the town